Myanmar, home to the world's longest-running civil war.
I hate to say it, but in a few years, will there even be any Karen around?
Karen State has the distinction of being home to the longest ongoing armed conflict on the planet.
Now this conflict is going on for more than 60 years.
63 years of fighting, instability, and suffering.
Karen is a term used to identify speakers of any 12 mutually unintelligible Karenic languages and their descendants. While today many Karen in Burma no longer speak the language of their grandparents, the ethnic group is large. The traditional homelands of the Karen people are in the Irrawaddy Delta region in the hills along the central Thai border. Of course, these areas were never historically homogeneous. Mon, Karen, and Burmans have coexisted alongside one another in the southern part of the country. Although statistics are wildly inconsistent, it appears that the Karen have a population of 7 to 10 million people spread across South Asia and the world.
Always wanted to be their own nation. We have our own language. I mean, Karen had our own everything. We have, like, we're more independent, and I feel that most Karen are very smart, and then they're very they get really I don't know, hardworking, strong personality, and then they're just really different from other ethnic groups in Burma. Karen's just really unique. I don't know how to explain, but they're just a unique group of people, and then they love their own people. They want to be, for example, my grandfather and my grandmother only wanted their kids to get married to Karen so they can be, so that kind of stuff goes on. But yeah, I think that they're just a really independent nation, and they're also Christian.
To understand how this one overarching identity emerged in the Karen separatist movement as a whole, we must go back to the early 19th century when Great Britain annexed southern and southwestern Burma in 1824. At this time, the Karen were an ethnic group on the fringes of recorded history, living mostly in the periphery of kingdoms ruled by other ethnic groups. However, the arrival of British missionaries and the subsequent conversion and missionary education of large numbers of Karen had huge implications for the future of the Karen people.
So I'm 50% Karen, and my mom is a full Karen. Both her parents are, actually we have two main Karen ethnic groups, and my mom's dad was Zogo Kaye, and then my grandmother was a Bogayen, I think. So she's 100% Karen, and my mom married my dad, who is Mon. That's another ethnicity in Burma. So Mon and Korean. So I'm 50% Karen and 50% Mon. Yeah. My experience of being Karen, it comes from my mom, since she's the one who had to experience most of that stuff. She is 100% Karen, and she's also a Christian. Karen is one of the major ethnic groups in Burma who are almost 80-90% Christian.
Today, due to the influence of the Christian and Western educated Karen elite at the beginning of the Karen ethnic mobilization, Karen nationalism, Karen identity, and Christianity are inexorably intertwined.
So being in Burma back in the day, my mom was born in 1950, and she became the first Christian Karen radio announcer. And then she told me all about how difficult it was to be a Christian, and also who came from ethnic group, how difficult it is, and she has a lot of stories like that. So
in 1882, Karen elites in the converted Christian community founded the Karen National Association, institutionalizing the connection between Christianity and the Karen ethnic and national identity. This organization is a direct precursor to the militant ethno-nationalist group most active today, the Karen National Union, or KNU. The KNU has historically been a main player of the Karen national conflict. In 1942, the British colonial administrative system collapsed, chased out of the country by the Burma Independent Army. Up until now, the Karen identity had been associated with these British institutions. In 1948, when the British formally acknowledged the independence of Burma, leaders of the Karen National Union proposed that the Karen state should be granted a similar independence. Talks of independence proved to be futile. During February of the same year, hundreds of thousands of Karen took part in nationalist demonstrations. The Burmese government responded violently, killing civilians and arresting leaders. These demonstrations soon turned into armed conflicts.
They also have that background where, there's always history of Karen fighting the Burmese government, so there's this history in place, and they're kind of still very hesitant to commingle with a lot of those Karen leaders.
The formation of a nominally civilian Burmese government in 2011 led to a signing of an initial ceasefire between the Burmese government and the KNU in 2012. However, renewed fighting between factions of the Karen resistance and the Burmese military, due primarily to lack of clarity over territorial claims, broke out in late September of 2014, highlighting the serious trust deficit between the Karen separatists and the nominally democratic Burmese government. While almost a century of fighting has effectively changed nothing on the national political level, it has successfully scattered the Karen population within Burma and around the globe. Two different groups have emerged out of this struggle: refugees in camps along the Thai-Burmese border and the diaspora now living in third-party countries. Each group has a different degree of influence on the trajectory of the movement and have varying opinions on what the future holds for their people.
So, in my freshman year, I had a journalism class, and as part of our final project, I knew that in Minnesota there was a large Karen refugee population, and I was really interested in hearing what their thoughts were on Burma since the democratic processes have started in 2011. And so I contacted the Life Center, which is a center that is in Minneapolis, and it's focused on getting jobs for refugees that do come into America, mostly geared towards Karen Burmese, or just Burmese in general. I contacted them, and I set up a lot of interviews with refugees just to hear their experiences moving to America, what their thoughts were on this new country and the transition, and whether they were going to go back to Burma.
Yeah, I've heard mixed stories. Like some of them, would say that people would go to their will join KNU just to get out of the country because they have all these refugee camps there as well that they control and they help out. So people will just go there just to be at the refugees camp to get out of the country. But some people really want to fight for their own independence. So it's always kind of like a different stories that we hear. But yeah.
One of them was talking to me about how the amount of health problems he had had. The Burmese government had tortured him ruthlessly. His legs weren't working as properly as they used to. He can't run anymore. He can walk, but he can't run anymore. And he used every last bit of energy that he had running across the jungle to leave to Thailand and get to the refugee camp.
These refugee camps can breed future Karen nationalist sentiment, but they can also cause Karen to become disconnected with their identity. A former junior KNU official and current humanitarian aid worker said, cynically, "There are 3 types of Karen in refugee camps. The first group knows nothing about politics, the second group doesn't care about anything, and the third group can't wait to join the armed resistance." Conditions in the refugee camps are far from ideal. Most Karen would prefer to be living in a third-party country where there are more economic opportunities, but resettlement is not easy.
There are people in the refugee camps who try and help them with the process. Obviously, there's a long kind of waiting line. Again, like I said, some people live there for up to 10 years, even more than that, before they're even granted asylum or granted granted that legal status of being able to leave the country, because some of them don't have official documentation anymore. They had to leave everything behind. It's so difficult to leave. So a lot of them had to go through a really grueling process of interviews, and a lot of Karen people don't know the Burmese official language very well. It's hard to grasp it, or if they do talk, they have a certain accent, which gives them, there's a stigma towards that accent as well, because it's very easy to distinguish. So then the officials at the office are make it a little bit more difficult for them to leave. And even when they do leave, when they do finally leave, when they come here, they feel like they don't have anything.
The people who are here, they just I don't even feel that they want to help them out anymore. They need to just survive here. Minnesota is one of the states in the U.S. that sponsor a lot of Karens, because we have this First Baptist Church in St. Paul, and most of the Karens are Baptists. I'm Baptist too, so they sponsor all those Baptists from refugee camps. But their life here is very different now. They would say that they want to help out and then send some money back to the refugee camps and stuff, but they have to kind of, get used to the system too, and then get used to this new life. So their life is way different than those refugee, like the people from the refugee camps.
Ultimately, the Karen hold a wide variety of opinions on the appropriate means for resolving the ongoing and entrenched political issues, opinions that depend on, among other factors, whether they are living in Karen state, in refugee camps, or in third-party countries.
I don't agree with their method. I think that there should be, there's a lot of things going on, so I know I kind of understand why they're trying to fight, but I still think that, but the Burmese government is also not I would say 50-50. I kind of agree with them, but I also don't think that violence is the way to go. So I would say 50-50, even if they try to negotiate with the government though. Our Burmese government is so corrupted that they don't really have a choice to be that way too. So
The lack of a clear majority opinion between and within the refugee camps and the diaspora group cast doubt on whether the movement will ever be successful in changing the prospects of the Karen people. This diversity of opinion is reflected in the armed Karen movement itself, which has experienced increasing levels of fractionalization since the 1990s. With 75% of the Karen people currently living outside of Karen state, the future of the movement is uncertain, and many Karen just want a resolution.
Yes, I am. I'm proud to be Karen, and yeah, that's how I'm brought up. My mom is very proud to be Karen, and she's proud to be Christian Karen, and she's taught me that way. So yes, I am proud to be Karen. I just hope that they have some kind of peace.